halfling holiday. The messenger comes with, well, a message for the adventurers to return. Now, we're going to cut across the grasslands. Big, powerful, shaggy ring of animal control. Swerve to get out of the way. Into the forest they go. They look a lot like kobolds. Now it becomes a foot race.
No tell. No tell.
Bugbears. The kobolds all stand up and run away. Oh yeah, the scroll! Lord Evalio. And it's signed, B. What should we do? Looming over the treetops. This. Hello everyone, I'm Father Aaron. Welcome to The Dungeon Minister! Our characters have spotted the tower looming over the forest. This must be where those kobolds came from. Maybe the other creatures, they don't know they're bugbears yet. Maybe the other creatures went in there. Maybe that's where B is. Whoever B is, let's go. Now, they're not just going to plow in there. They're not just going to run in. They're going to do reconnaissance first. So they send Fofire. Okay, send the thief. That makes sense. Have her sneak ahead. Have her check it out. Come back and tell us what she sees. Then we'll know what we're dealing with. Okay, fair enough. Problem, they are not the only sneaky ones here this day. As Fofire creeps toward the tower, where the trail widens out into a clearing, as she creeps forward, out from ambush leap the bugbears. Of course, bugbears, they're great at ambush. They're very sneaky, very quiet, and so out they jump and they attack Fofire. It is 4-on-1. She is in trouble. There's about 2 rounds of combat before the others can catch up and come to her assistance. It is not looking good for Fofire when into the mix rushes Fleetwood, and he slams into one of the bugbears and starts to fight it. Now the other 3, 2 of them concentrate on Fofire. The third one gets a last lick in at Fofire and then turns to fight Fleetwood. As he does so, up come Touchberry and Bob Johnny. Now it's 4-on-4, 1-on-1. Fofire is still doing badly. She has bad armor class, right? She's got a decent number of hit points because thieves advance so fast. She's got a decent number of hit points, but she's getting beat down. This is not good for Fofire. It's looking, again, pretty dire. Fortunately, Touchberry comes in and with one stroke cuts down a bugbear. His first attack. He comes in, boom! He rolls a massive attack and just takes the bugbear down. So then he's able to turn and help Fofire with her other bugbear. Bob Johnny's battling one out, and that's going in Bob Johnny's favor as well. And he's got the plate mail armor, he's got this axe, he's doing great, no problems there. Fofire is rescued, Touchberry takes out that one as well. So now 3 bugbears down. The 4th one, who was fighting Fleetwood, looks at the situation and decides this is not for me, turns tail and runs. And he runs straight to the tower. Dives in through the entrance. Okay? Now, the adventurers decide, what are we going to do? There's one school of thought, follow him immediately. Go get him, right? The others say, well, no. What has he rushed into? And Fofire here is not looking so good. Maybe we should hold off. That is the school of thought that wins the day, and they wait. Touchberry uses his sword to heal Fofire, and she gets some hit points back, but she's still in the teens at this point. Someone who came from the 30s came down into the teens, so it's not great, but she's better off, and they decide what they're going to do. Finally, it is decided they will go in. They enter the clearing. The tower looms over them. Now, from their angle, they can't see this orb up on top. They could see it from a distance, but from where they are now, they can't see it, and in the daylight, they wouldn't notice, but it is glowing. It is pulsing, okay? Into the tower they head. As they enter, there's a staircase to their left that curves up, going up the tower. To their right is just a corridor that goes around the outside of the tower. They look at the stairs, they say, well, let's see what's down at the bottom first, and they go forward into the first floor chamber. As they enter, they hold their lantern up. Of course, they're going into a building, right? And when you go into a building or a dungeon, you light your lantern. Especially this building, there's no windows on the bottom floor. You wouldn't put arrow slits on the ground floor, or the enemy would just walk up and shoot you. So there's no way for light to get in. They know it's going to be dark in there, right? So they light their lantern. In they go. But as they enter, light springs up. There's a glowing disc on the ceiling which illuminates as they enter the room. It's sort of a motion sensor light, but magic, right? You've got a light spell, a permanent spell, a contingency spell, something of that nature, all bound together so that when you walk into the rooms, the light turns on. Now, I didn't need to do that because they do have a lantern. I could have just had them use their lantern like they normally do, but I thought that was kind of cool. In the room, directly across from the door, there is a throne. On either side of the room stand 2 statues. Now, as I mentioned in the video about the making of this, I wasn't able to find any statues that I liked, so I made some out of foam, but they were kind of so I tossed them when we were done. I don't have those to show you. But they were statues that looked a bit like this. A warrior figure with a large sword, hands folded on top of it, head slightly bowed. That's what stands on either side of the room. They enter, and Fleetwood wants to look at that throne, and Touchberry wants to sit in it. So they approach the throne, but as they come to the center of the room, the 2 statues grind to life, step off their bases, and attack. Living statues! When I was a teenager and I was DMing for my friends, I loved living statues, and I still do. I think it's a fabulous idea. You throw them in often enough that your players approach every statue with fear and dread, and then you stop putting them in for a while. No living statues. To the point that they're like, oh yeah, it's a statue. And then, boom, it's on them. So, I like that. Anyhow, the statues attack. Now, their first priority in this, well, that's to destroy the statues. But their second priority in this is to keep Foefire safe. Eventually, Foefire drops back, because she gets hit once in this battle, and it starts to look like this is a bad idea. So Foefire drops back, pulls out her bow, and starts trying to contribute that way. Yeah, I don't know. That is kind of odd, isn't it? There's nothing in the rules that say otherwise, though. They do defeat the statues. They were not any of the ones that are included in BECMI. There's a note in the living statue entry in the monster section that you can invent your own statues of different materials. So these were granite. They weren't the magma shooting rock kind, but they were a stone of some sort. And I gave them more hit points than the crystal and that kind of stuff, but not as many as the magma shooter. At any rate, they defeat those statues, and now they wait tensely. Was that heard? Is someone coming? No one comes. Let's check out this throne. Again, Touchberry wanted to sit in it, so he plops himself down in it. Fleetwood wants to examine it, and as he's examining it, presumably lifting Touchberry up to look under him, anyhow, as he's examining it, he discovers on the right arm of the throne there is a small carved rectangle. Just a line, a crack in a perfect rectangle in the arm. He says, well, that's suspicious. And he plays with it a little bit, and eventually he pushes it in a certain way, and it pops open. And in there he finds a wand whose handle has wrapped around it a carving of chains. Chains. Now, what is that? My eldest has memorized the player's manual. I mean, he knows it verbatim. His brothers will be making a character and they'll say, how much does a rope cost? Boom, he rattles it off. I have no idea how much a rope costs in BECMI, but he knows. At any rate, he has it memorized. And so he looks at this wand and he says, ooh, I bet it's a wand that casts Hold Person, which is a magic user spell, right? And most of the wands simply cast magic user spells. And he knows that's what this is. And I said, well, you don't know, but that's a reasonable guess. Of course, he's right, darn him. But anyway, okay, that's what it is. It is there for the occupant of the throne, if he gets into trouble, to reach in and hold whoever it is who's bothering him. They look around the rest of the room. There's nothing here. So out they go, and they head up the stairs. And it's really cool because when you go up the stairs, you add another section of the tower. So it's like, oh, cool, it's got a different floor, and it's just a neat progression. And they come to a study. By the looks of the room, by the contents in the room, a wizard's study. There are scrolls, there are bottles of strange liquids, there are ancient books. This is the study of a wizard. And the first thing they want to do is look around for goodies. And they find some. I figure, you got to throw them some bones here, you got to throw them some stuff. They find a couple of scrolls with spells on them. One is Charm Person, the other is ESP. Both of those are within their capacity to cast. There are also some bottles, including a potion of healing and a potion of fire resistance, which will come in handy. The rest of the paperwork is beyond their understanding. It's research into some arcane ideas. The books are in some of them languages they don't read. Some of them are simply about topics they don't understand. But they look through it all and they also see this treasure chest. Well, a chest, who knows what's in it? It's a chest. Great! Maybe there's some gold. Wait, let's be cautious. And I think it might have been my middle boy who says, yeah, wait, we should get the thief to check for traps. Don't just go opening it. It could be trapped. He's very cautious, and he's always certain that I'm going to kill the whole party. He's sure that a TPK is coming any moment. Anyhow, they send the thief to look. Okay, she goes up to check for traps. Well, do you see what's coming? Yeah, you see what's coming. It's a mimic! So as soon as she touches the thing, she sticks, and a huge protuberance comes out and whap! Smacks her. I know mimics aren't in BECMI, but I imported this from AD&D because they're just so cool. And because making the miniature version was a lot of fun. So they have a fight with a mimic on their hands. Fofire is stuck to this chest, and it is pummeling her. Remember, she's the last one who can afford this. She's taken a good hit, and she is in trouble. The others pile on. They just pile on. Bob Johnny shoots a magic missile, and Fleetwood comes in with his sword, which hits, and I think he rolls and it doesn't get stuck. Touchberry comes in with his sword, and it does get stuck, so now he's trying to wrestle his sword off of this thing. It's a big, palaver, and they struggle, but they do eventually defeat the thing, and it settles into a gelatinous ooze on the floor. And they decide they're never trusting another chest again. Fortunately, mimics can look like anything. Anyhow, having found no gold in there, but plenty of lovely treasures in this room, they continue upward. On the stairs up to the next level, they encounter a bugbear. The same bugbear that had been fighting Fleetwood. It is coming down the stairs and looks strangely vacant. Like it's not operating under its own impulses. Hint, it's not. It's bewitched, and it's been sent down here against its will. But it begins to fight as a sort of automaton. Now, it had already taken some damage from Fleetwood, so it's no big deal to dispatch. But the fight on the stairs is interesting because normally they put Touchberry in the front always because he has high enough hit points and good armor class. They put him in front because then they can shoot over him, right? They figure it's easy. He's short. They can shoot a bow over his head. But on the stairs, the shortness is sort of canceled out by the angle of the stairs. So they get into a bit of a mix trying to all be able to fight, which they can't all get in. They just can't all get involved in the fight. The logistics of the staircase precluded. But fortunately, again, he'd already been injured, this bugbear, and Touchberry, who's in the front, takes him down. With a bit of a struggle, he takes a couple of hits himself, but mostly it's okay. They come to the next level, and they look in through the doorway to the now third story entrance, or second story if you're in Great Britain. Anyhow, they look in, and they see what looks like a corridor. The walls, though, glimmer and glisten as a sort of purplish light bathes them. What is going on in there? They're standing there pondering what this could be when they hear a cry. It sounds like a child. Help, help, help. There's a child in there in danger. Let's go! Which is a fabulous impulse. I'm glad that they did that. Like the first thing when they hear someone in trouble, the first thing they do is they go to help. Brilliant. I'm glad of that. I think it's one of the things that, Dungeons and Dragons can help foster in kids. This, heroic impulse to go and save the day. But brilliant, we need more of it. Anyway, in they go. They walk into this place, and immediately their spidey sense is tingling, because this is just weird and unnatural. It just feels off. There's a hollow feeling here, as if there was something beyond what they could see. Looking around them, peering around this corner and that, they see that it's just a series of hallways that head off in all directions. Fleetwood immediately says, this is a maze. We need to mark where we have been. We need to find a way to find our way back out again. We need to leave marks of some kind. So they say, well, can we make a mark on the wall? I say, with what? Well, I've got some torches that had been burned before. They must have some ash on it. Can I write on the wall? I say, go ahead, make a mark on the wall. Okay, make a mark on the wall. Fleetwood isn't satisfied. He pulls out his dagger, and he says, I'm going to leave this here, pointing toward the exit at this first intersection we're going to go to. They've decided which way they want to go. I'm going to go up here around this corner. I'm going to lay down this dagger, pointing toward the exit. Okay. Lays down the dagger. They proceed. Now, as I mentioned in the making of video for this is an extra-dimensional maze. It's bigger than the footprint of the tower, okay? And obviously I can't do that on a literal tower, so we switch at that point to a map that I had printed off, a maze I'd printed off, and I'm talking them through it, and they're plotting it out, and I'm helping them make sure they get the corridors right and the turns and all that kind of stuff. As they go, occasionally they'll hear again the sound of the child.
Help! I'm so scared.
Where is this child? We gotta help her. And they continue deeper and deeper into the maze. But before they go far, they retrace their steps quickly. Fleetwood says, I just want to check. And he goes back to where the dagger is. He says, is the dagger still there? Dagger's still there. Is the mark still on the wall? Mark's still on the wall. Okay, so we know where the exit is. You don't actually see the exit. What do you mean I don't see the exit? Well, the dagger is pointing, and it's right where you left it. You can tell the walls are all the same configuration as when you were here last. It wasn't that long ago. And it's pointing toward a dead end. As soon as they leave sight of the entrance, it seals up. Now they're stuck in the maze. Again, they hear the child crying, and they hear something else. A bellowing, a roar, a deep... Is that what it was? Now, all of my boys are very familiar with mythology. They read a lot of books. They read a lot of mythology books. So instantly they all say, Minotaur! Yeah, of course it's a Minotaur. You gotta have a Minotaur in a maze, right? So now they're afraid that the Minotaur has the child captive or is hunting the child, and so they're redoubling their efforts. They begin to run through this thing. And so they're not making as careful of decisions. They're not being as logical. They just strike out. And I'm plotting where they are. And they're not keeping the map anymore. They're just going, go, go, go. We've got to find. We got to find. Eventually, they come to a long corridor. And this was just a matter for me of how many turns they make, and is it about time to spring this on them? Because again, this is an extra-dimensional maze. These walls are not permanent. They move around to suit the situation. So I decide they've had enough of the maze. They turn a corner, and there's just one long, straight shot. And at the end of it, stands this guy. I love those old action figures. Action is the wrong word. I mean, they don't move, right? They're static. They're static figures. I love those old static figures. They're fabulous. Anyhow, with a snort and a bellow, this thing charges. It's coming the length of the corridor, building up a huge head of steam, horns lowered, great axe held aloft, charging at them. They brace themselves, and Bob Johnny casts web. Casts web and blocks up the passage, and this thing crashes into it. He waits. He says, I'm going to wait till he's almost on us, because of course he doesn't want it to stop and not even bother. He wants it to get caught. And it plows in, and it does get caught. Now, the rules say that a larger than human creature with a great strength can break free in a certain number of rounds, etc. Okay, so I say it's going to take him 4 rounds to break out. I think a giant can do it in 2. So a Minotaur is pretty big. He can do it in 4. He's ripping at these things and tearing at them and struggling. But in the meantime, they get some hits in. And I give them a bonus for attack because he can't, dodge or defend or anything like that. And they take him down a few hit points before he tears off all the web and swings his axe. He hits Bob Johnny, who goes sprawling. This thing's massive. So if it's going to hit you, boom, you're down. So he's hit. He takes hit points. I can't remember how many it was, like 6 or 7 or something. And then he goes sprawling across the floor. The others jump in to attack. Battle on. Faux-Fire is holding back and using her bow and missing wildly. Faux-Fire is an awful archer. I don't know why, but when she attacks with her sword, she tends to hit. When she attacks with her bow, she tends to miss. So the kingdom has arrows littered all over it with her name written on them, right? And she's a poing, poing. Anyway, they have a fight, and they eventually do defeat it. It is hard, and it is long. It's a slog for this one. It doesn't go in a nice sort of swashbuckly way. It's just a grind as they hack it down 3 hit points, 5 hit points at a time. But they do finally kill the beast. As it falls, it vanishes. With it vanish all of the walls around them. They blow away like Thanos at the end of the Avengers, right? Just scattered, gone. The whole thing was illusory. All of the hit points in damage that they took, they get back, except when Bob Johnny went sprawling. I think he took an extra point of damage from slamming down onto the floor. That stays, but all of the axe blows, the goring from the horns, all of that restored. They've got it back because it was just an illusion. What's going on? And they realize, looking around the room, they realize that they entered this floor of the tower and have just been doubling back and moving around like this. And the maze has been shifting their perception to keep them within the bounds of the room so they never smack into a real wall, right? It's just been steering them around in circles. They've been wandering around in a circle for, an hour or so, looking for this child who doesn't exist either. Now they appreciate that they are dealing with a magic user with some extreme power. In reality, they're dealing with... No, I'll tell you later. They know, though, that they are dealing with someone who's got a great deal of power behind them. So now they're braced. What are we going to find on the top of this tower? They go up another flight. On the next level, they find a cozy domestic scene, because even a wicked, evil, bugbear-employing, minotaur maze-casting scoundrel of a wizard, even that wizard needs to go Betty-bye at some point. And so they find his bedroom. There's a bed, there's a wardrobe in which they find wizard's robes of various kinds. This wizard thinks a great deal of himself and likes to dress up. And they find a chest. Okay, we're not falling for that again. No siree. Well, what are you going to do about it? They pick up something from the table, like an ink pot or something, and they throw it at the chest. Let's see if this sticks. It doesn't. It bounces off. It's just a chest. Okay, let's still be careful. Faux-Fire, can you check it for traps? Now, just as an aside, they have given Faux-Fire that potion of healing that they found down in the study. They gave her that potion, and now she's a little higher in hit points. It's a bit better, so it's not quite as dire, but and still, they send her, with the lowest hit points, already near death at a couple of points in this adventure, they send her to check this chest, because she's the thief, and that's what she does. She does her check. She finds a trap. There is indeed a trap here. She can't see what it is, but she can see that there's a mechanism in there that if you try to pick the lock or open the chest, it will be sprung. And so she's going to try to remove traps. Okay? She makes the roll, or rather I make the roll behind the screen. She misses it, though. Or I miss it on her behalf. I don't know. So the funny thing about this is when they sent Faux-Fire to go check this chest, they all huddled at the other end of the room. Like, she's the one with the lowest hit points. She's nearly been killed, and we're going to send you to do this, and we're going to hide over here. So they're all clustered at the other side of the room when the trap is sprung, which is good because it shoots out a poisonous gas. A green cloud surrounds Faux-Fire, and she has to make a save versus poison. Fortunately, she makes her save. Whew. Okay. So she holds her breath in time, rolls away, gets away from the thing in time, and the gas sort of dissipates into the rest of the room. And the others are like, do we have to make a saving throw? And I say, no, there's enough air in the room. The amount of gas as it disperses doesn't fill the room with toxic gases. It dilutes enough in the air. But of course, if you were going to set this trap in your own bedroom, you wouldn't want to come in and find the thief dead on the floor and then die yourself, right? So, yeah. Okay, been disarmed. What's inside? Gold, silver, copper, and some gems. So they find treasure, all right? And they load up the bag of holding. Ha ha ha, right? All right, let's go. Wait a minute. Bob Johnny says, what about this table? Are there any more scrolls? Are there any more potions on this table, right? Because there's a little table here in the wizard's bedroom. They look at the table. There's no scrolls of spells. There's no potions. There is, however, a scroll with a note. And this is what it says. Lord Evalio. Evalio again. Your offer intrigues me. We shall talk. I have laid and sprung a trap for the party that attacked your children. They have fallen into my hands and will soon be my prisoners. I will offer them as a gift when we meet. Signed, Bargle Gwyndian. Bargle! The Bargle! The Bargle who killed our sweet Alina! That Bargle, the detestable, the treacherous, the wicked, that Bargle! All three of my boys are instantly enraged. My wife is instantly confused. Why do we hate Bargle? What did Bargle do? Alina! She's less motivated by revenge for Alina's death than they are, for whatever reason. But Bargle. Of course it's Bargle. You knew it was going to be Bargle, didn't you? How could it not? Weapons out there, out the door, and up to the top of the tower, which is the top of the tower. They emerge into the afternoon light to see their Bargle. In the midst of the tower roof, of course, there stands this chunk of rock on which is the orb. They all ponder it for a little while. There is the orb pulsing and glowing with an inner magic, and there is Bargle cackling at them. We roll for initiative. Bargle gets it. This is bad news for the adventurers. His first act is to cast Charm Person. He's famous for it, right? He casts Charm Person on the character that he thinks is the most threat to him. Who is that? Touchberry, who fails his saving throw, which is strange because halflings have really, really, really low saving throws. They don't have to roll very high to save, but he misses it, and so suddenly, what's my old friend Bargle? What are you doing up here, you old scoundrel? How are things? Guys, you gotta meet Bargle. He's fabulous. Come talk to him. He's great. So, Touchberry is now out of the running for any help on the top here. Fleetwood is not charmed. Faux-Fire and Bob Johnny are perfectly in their right minds. They attack. Bob Johnny casts his other magic missile, and it, of course, hits and hurts Bargle. Faux-Fire shoots, and by all measures, she ought to have hit, but he has got a crazy low AC. He is crazy hard to hit. For a magic user, shouldn't he just be in just robes and stuff? Oh no, he has equipped himself. He has a ring of protection. He's got all sorts of magic stuff on him. He's also cast shield before they come up, so he is all set. Fleetwood tries to cast sleep on him. You remember earlier I said that he has an encyclopedic memory for the rules? Well, unfortunately, he forgot that after a certain level, sleep doesn't affect a creature, and this wizard, considering how powerful he apparently is clearly above that level. So he casts sleep and it does nothing to Bargle, who just laughs, and with a staff in his hand, twirls it, strikes the ground, and out emerges a fire elemental. Now, you're going to say, but Dungeon Minister, in order to conjure an elemental, you have to have a lot of that element around you. Now, you've got a lot of air. I could even buy a lot of earth because of the stones, but fire? Where is all the fire? To this, I give 3 answers. 1. Fire elementals are the coolest elemental. Bar none. I don't care, they're the coolest. 2. We have a fire elemental miniature. That guy. Although, again, I do like those old figures from the 80s, so I also like this guy. Anyhow, this is the one we have, and that's the one we're going to go with. And I really don't want to spend more money on miniatures at this point. So, fire elemental it is. 3, the orb. What this orb is undefined at this point, but we know that it is a source of great magic, and it is an artifact which will allow you to conjure an elemental even if you don't have the element handy. That is what you call writing yourself out of a corner, or writing yourself into this miniature. Anyhow, a fire elemental emerges and attacks. This turns out to be well beyond the character's capability to deal with. And I kind of knew that going in. I kind of knew that it was a bit early to introduce an elemental, but there is always an Achilles heel to a conjured elemental. You know what that is? If you can break the concentration of the caster, then, the elemental will be free and will turn on its caster. We could kill 2 birds with 1 stone here, people. That becomes their goal. And my boys know this. My eldest's encyclopedic memory kicks back in, and he remembers from reading the spell Conjure Elemental that you need to break the spell's caster's concentration in order to break this. Meanwhile, they've got this elemental to handle. So what they decide to do is that Fleetwood and Bob Johnny will square off against the elemental and try to keep it busy while Foefire tries to shoot Bargle with arrows. Problem being, Touchberry keeps trying to get in the way. He's trying to reconcile his friends. No, don't fight. He's my friend. Don't you know? These are my friends. Don't hurt each other. Oh, you should be friends too. It doesn't matter because Foefire cannot hit this guy to save her life, right? The geography up here gets in the way, and the fire elemental gets around to the other side, and Fleetwood ends up closer to Bargle than he is to the elemental. He rushes to attack Bargle. As he does, though, Touchberry stands in the way. No, don't hurt my friend. What are you doing? And Touchberry actually draws his sword. He's going to defend his friend Bargle against his other friend, Fleetwood. And he says, I don't want to hurt you. And so we've got a standoff, right? What are we going to do? Finally, Foefire hits something. She manages to get through the insanely low AC that Bargle has, that I gave him, and she hits him. He screams in pain and stumbles back and loses his concentration. The fire elemental turns and rushes toward Bargle. Bargle loses his mind. He's going crazy because now he's got a fire elemental after him and these 4 adventurers. He's afraid because bullies are cowards, let's face it. He's afraid and he starts freaking out. Touchberry rushes up to him and says, don't worry, I think I can convince my friends not to hurt you. Don't worry, I'll protect you. Bargle slaps him. Doesn't do any hit point damage, but it breaks the spell. And Touchberry's like, who are you? What did you do to me? Just then, the fire elemental shows up to settle scores with this magic user who pulled him away from his home plane. Bargle casts Fly on himself and soars up into the air, pulling away from the tower a decent distance, from which he screams, I'll get you, my pretties, and soars off into the distance. The fire elemental begins pursuit. The characters look at each other. Oh, what happened? Then they think, hey, we've got a really cool tower now. Just then, there's a rumble and a sickening lurch as the tower moves, and it begins to turn and rotate. What's going on? It rotates, and they can see from the treetops around them that it's lowering. It's screwing itself down into the ground, which was inspired by the corkscrew nature of the stairs, even though there would be walls outside of these, of course. As it reaches the ground, they all jump off. They don't want to get, sucked into the ground with this thing. And it churns down further and further till only the horns and the orb are sticking out. The orb in place, turning, and the horns ripping the earth apart. And it settles and finally collapses, the horns disappearing under the surface of the ground, and the land itself reforming and the snow covering up where the tower had been. This tower is actually the source of a lot of Bargle's power. In my world, there's not a lot of towers about. There aren't magic users building towers everywhere. They're relatively rare. Sulex's tower, for instance, in Honeywood, is not of his own building. He's not even high enough level to build himself a tower, but it was sitting empty, so he moved in. So Bargle has moved into one that he found. He acquired it in one of his own adventures. And it is a repository of this evil magic, which makes him a more formidable enemy than he would be normally. He is now also very angry at these characters, and he's going to take his revenge. But not yet. First, they're going to have to deal with another enemy and another revenge.